You know, in his final hours, Jesus gave his disciples a set of instructions that would pretty much redefine everything. So today, we're going to dive into the source material to unpack his most profound parting messages. We're talking about a new commandment, the promise of a pretty mysterious helper, and this really surprising idea that him leaving was actually the key to getting even closer.
So here's how we'll break it down. First, we'll look at the new commandment itself. Then, we'll get into the promise of this figure called the Paraclete. After that, we're going to connect the dots between love, obedience, and the Spirit. And finally, we'll explore this kind of wild paradox of how Jesus leaving actually kicked off a whole new kind of presence. So, let's start with the command that really changed everything.
I mean, really think about that for a second. The weight of that, your final message. That's the mindset we need to be in here. Jesus knows his time is short, and what he's about to say, well, it's meant to be the absolute foundation for everything that comes after him.
Okay, so let's get into the core instruction. And this isn't just, another rule on the list. The source material really frames this as the bedrock of an entirely new kind of relationship with God.
And there it is. Now, it sounds simple enough, right? But the source material is really quick to point out just how radical this was. The standard isn't just be nice, it's love as I have loved you. That's a completely different level. We're talking about a whole different league of love here.
And this is the key. This commandment, it isn't about drumming up some warm, fuzzy feeling. No, it's more like an invitation to actually participate in the same kind of divine love that defines the relationship between God the Father and God the Son. It's like you're being invited into the family dynamic itself.
So, you get this massive new command, but it honestly sounds impossible, right? Especially with Jesus about to leave. And that brings us to the solution he offers up, the promised Paraclete. I mean, you can just feel the tension the disciples must have been feeling. Their leader, the perfect example of this love, is about to be taken away, so how on earth are they supposed to pull this off on their own? It really does sound like they're being set up to fail.
But Jesus doesn't just leave them hanging. He promises to send a Paraclete. Now, the source text we're looking at, which is originally in Korean, uses this term 보혜사. And what that word means is a helper, an advocate, a comforter, basically someone who is called to come right alongside you to help. This is the answer.
Now this is where it gets really, really interesting. Look at how this helper is described. First, he's another helper, which implies he's the same kind of help that Jesus was. He's the Spirit of truth. But then, look at those last 2 points. He's not just a visitor, he's going to abide forever. And maybe the most radical part, he won't just be with them, he will be in them. I mean, that is a complete game changer.
Okay, so this helper sounds absolutely crucial. The big question is, how do you get this helper? Well, that question leads us right into our third section, which basically lays out a kind of spiritual chain of events.
The source text maps this out so clearly. See, it all kicks off with loving Jesus. But that love isn't just a passive feeling, it's something you do. It's expressed through action, by keeping his commands like the big one we just talked about. And it's this loving obedience that kind of opens the door for the promised Spirit to come in. It's a relationship, not a transaction.
And what's so cool is that it becomes this amazing feedback loop. It's not a one-and-done deal. The Paraclete, the Spirit, comes to empower them to obey. And as they obey, their love and their relationship with God gets deeper, which then makes them even more receptive to the Spirit's help. It's this incredible self-reinforcing upward spiral.
Okay, let's bring all this together in our final section, because it all builds to a conclusion that sounds completely backward at first. A new, closer companionship that could only begin once Jesus was gone.
This chart just lays it out perfectly. Before, Jesus' presence was physical. It was external. He could be with his disciples, sure, but he was still stuck in one place at one time. But the new presence, the one through the Spirit, is totally different. It's spiritual. It's internal. Literally in you. And it's unlimited. It's with every single believer, everywhere, all the time, forever. It's a massive upgrade.
And this right here is pulled straight from a summary in our source material, and it just hammers this point home. It says that the Spirit is given to those who keep the commands, and that Jesus' return isn't another physical one, but a spiritual one. He comes back by the Spirit to live inside believers. So get this, he had to leave so he could be present in an even deeper, more permanent way.
So here's the bottom line. The disciples, they must have been devastated. They probably saw his leaving as abandonment, as the end of everything.
But from this perspective, it wasn't an end at all. It was a promotion. It was the necessary step to go from a teacher-student relationship to something way more intimate, an indwelling divine companionship.
And that kind of leaves us with this final thought to chew on. If you strip away all the theology for just a second, the core idea here leaves us with a really profound question. What actually changes when you shift your thinking from a God who is somewhere out there to one who is an internal, abiding presence, a helper, a comforter, called right to your side? What does that actually look like?